Hi, this is Tech Tips for Attorneys. In this webinar, I'm going to go over some technology tools, software, apps, hacks, things that can really help you make more efficient use of technology in your practice, and ways to do things a little bit more streamlined using technology. And I know that a lot of you are probably in the LIFT program, attorneys, especially for you. Sometimes attorneys in big law firms, it's really hard to pick up technology because you have to get everybody else around you on board with it in order to make it useful. The nice thing about you, if you're just starting out as an attorney or a solo practitioner, is for these technology tools you can get in, start them up, and integrate them fully into your practice without having to get anyone else on board. So for you in particular, it's a great opportunity to use new technology and make it more useful for you as solo practitioners. Sometimes there's a lot of different technology, there's a lot of different apps, and this webinar is designed to basically go through all of them and say these are the best ones for attorneys in particular and attorneys just getting started that can use them to make their practice more efficient. So before we get started, a little bit about me. So again, my name is Andrew Sharp. I'm currently a 3L at Chicago-Kent College of Law. Also a content manager at Illinois Legal Aid Online, which is the statewide legal information website for Illinois. You can email me or shoot me a direct message on Twitter or tweet at me if you have any questions after this. I'd be happy to address any of those. So why am I here? The organization that I'm here in New Orleans with is called Student Humanitarian Network. Basically, we come down every year for a week to help out here in New Orleans with legal aid or the public defender's office. It's just a great way to see how a different state does legal aid and public defender work and get to learn about a different city and how it works. So that's why I'm here, and I'm really happy to be giving this presentation to you. And before I begin, I just want to say that you can find tons more tech tips on lsntap.org. It's basically, they do 50 tech tips for attorneys at least once a year, and they just have tons and tons of great tips and software all the time. So if you really like the presentation today, I would definitely suggest going to LSNTAP to watch some of their webinars as well. A lot of what I'm talking about today, I kind of drew from different videos that I've seen from them or other people like them. So the first thing that we have to talk about is the case management system. So I'm sure you all are aware of the various different types of case management systems that are out there. There are a lot. You probably already have one, but I just wanted to start there because it is sort of the center in terms of technology for you as a lawyer. That's where everything kind of starts. It is really essential. I can't really imagine a lawyer getting by today and practicing law without having a piece of CMS software. It just really ties everything together. You can handle your clients, you can handle your hours, you can handle your matters. Everything is right there in one CMS. The big ones are Clio, MyCase, and Rocket Matter. Those are the three big ones that I see, but there are, like I said, tons of them. Most of them are software as a service, which basically means that it lives on the cloud. You don't have to download everything and run it from your hard drive. You just have a password, you log in, and it lives in the cloud. But others you actually do download and they live on your computer. But the next step in the practice in terms of technology that you might not have come across yet is something called online intake. So a big time-intensive part of bringing on new clients is doing the intake, asking them a bunch of questions, getting the information, not just their biographical information and where they live and their phone number and all that stuff, but also just the basics of what happened, or even what are your assets, or whatever kind of stock questions you have for a certain type of client. This is what online intake is supposed to address and make streamlined and almost automated for you. So basically, instead of having a client in and sitting them down and asking them the same questions that you ask every client, or having an intake specialist do the same thing, more and more what I'm seeing is people are just doing that online. They're using a form, they're using some sort of software to automate that process and just gather all that data and then just have that plugged right into the case management system so that all that information is ready to go. And then when you first sit down with the client, you can actually start from a place of actually knowing a little bit about their story. You don't know everything, you still need to ask some questions, but now you at least know all the basics. It's all right there, it's recorded, and they've typed it, they've entered it, so you don't need to worry about Scrivener's errors or interpretation, anything like that. It's the client telling you, okay, here's the basics, here's what happened. On this form, it says, this is for a DUI. It says, when did you receive it? Where did you get pulled over? Why were you pulled over? And what sobriety test did the officer perform? So right away, you have all this great information that you know that's going to help you sort of get in your mind, okay, where is this client at? Can I help them? How can I help them? That kind of thing. So already there's Rocket Matter, which is one of the CMS applications I mentioned before, has recently announced that they have online intake built in. For an extra fee per month, I think it starts at $50 a month, they will set up for you your own online intake. They already have templates that can help you get started if you don't know, well, what questions should I ask? They already have that. And then now there's also Lexicata, which is its own software, but then that integrates right into Clio, which is one of the major CMS softwares. So again, you can get your Lexicata subscription and they will help you develop all these great forms online so that you can say to your client, here you go, here's the online intake, answer those questions, and then we'll get that information and we'll go from there. So it's a great way to really streamline and, from what I can see, take a lot of time-intensive work out of the client intake process. So the next kind of big one is the business suite, which is just a fancy word for Google Apps. Most people have Google Apps, and that's your Gmail, your Google Calendar, your Google Drive, your Google Chat or GChat, your Google Groups, and all that sort of stuff. So again, it's almost not worth mentioning because almost everybody has it, but it is something to keep in mind that you are choosing to use this as your business suite, and there are alternatives out there if you wanted to. There's Microsoft 365 is trying to get into that game, and then something called Zoho I came across in my research is also trying to do that, to have your email software, your calendaring software, your sort of drive software all in one place. There are others trying to fight, but again, Google Apps is far and away the standard, and it's a good one. It's a good suite, and they're always updating it and adding new things. So the big thing for me when you're talking about having all that stuff in one place, it's great. I have Google, I have all my stuff in one place, but passwords are a very big issue, and too many people have too weak passwords. And this cartoon basically shows it. This is from XKCD, which is a great webcomic. And it basically shows you, so most people have a password like this. So it's a uncommon, but non-gibberish base word. So maybe it's your pet's name, maybe it's your favorite team. Here it's troubadour, so whatever that word meant to the person, troubadour. And then they've added, at some point they were told, well, you have to have punctuation. So they added a little bit of punctuation. They said, well, you also have to have some numbers in there. Okay, well, I'll put a number in here, but I'll also go through and, I'll change the O to a 0 and the A to a 4. Now that's, how is anyone going to ever hack that? Well, what XKCD shows with these little squares, this is how each one of these represents another step in difficulty for a computer to actually hack that. So you get a lot by picking the uncommon word. There's a lot of words out there, so picking one, that starts you off pretty good. Adding capitalization doesn't really add too much because it's only either capitalized or not capitalized, so that doesn't really take too much time for the computer to go through the options. And even these substitutions, as you can see, they're a little bit better, but they don't really add too much what they call entropy, which is how long it takes for a computer to figure out how you changed it. And then even the punctuation down here, there's a lot of different types of punctuation. The computer has to try to hack your password, but at the end of the day, not too much. And it even figures it out. It's about, for this password, it's about 1,000 guesses a second, and that's going to take a normal computer 3 days. So if a normal computer can hack your password in 3 days if it really wants to try. So it's really easy for the computer to guess that, but it's actually really hard for you to remember that. Because it's like, I know it was troubadour, but was the first O a 0 or was the second O a 0? And I know that there was a symbol in there, something like that. So for you, it's actually hard, whereas for the computer, it's actually easy. So what's the solution? The solution is to come up with 4 random but common words. So he's picked correct, horse, battery, staple. Now, these are very, very common words. They're not like troubadour. They're very common words, but even so, they are one of many, many words. So you still get a lot of entropy for each word. And then when you actually put them all together, you get a multiplication effect. So for this password, just correct, horse, battery, staple, just that, no substitution, no punctuation. It's going to take that same computer at that same rate 550 years to guess that password. And as you can see, it's actually easier for the person to remember that because they just have this silly little scene in their head. It's a horse looking at a battery with a staple on it and saying that's a battery staple, and the person saying correct. So correct, horse, battery staple. And that in their mind, like they will never forget telling a horse that they're correct, that it's a battery staple. It's a silly thing, but studies have actually shown that silly or out of the ordinary things actually stick in your mind better. So it's a much better password, and that's a lot better than just trying to switch around a pet's name or something like that. So try it out. Another thing about security is two-factor authentication. If you're only relying on a password to keep your account secure, you're using one-factor authentication. If you add another factor, you've added basically another step that a hacker or somebody has to get through in order to get into your account and all your client's information and all that stuff. So this is a very important tool. It's called Google Authenticator. It's an app that you can download for iPhone, Android, anything like that. And basically, when you're logging into Google from a new computer, Google says, okay, enter your password. You enter your password, it says, okay, that's the right password. But now we've sent a code to your phone and tell us what that code is. So you might have run into this before where it says, oh, we don't recognize this browser. Please enter the code that we're texting to you. Well, it's basically the same thing, but you have it on an app, so you don't have to worry about getting it into your text messages and stuff like that. So it's another great tool that you can use. I highly recommend using two-factor authentication. So that's enough for security. Let's move on to just more getting things done. Tools for efficiency. I have a lot of these because there's just a lot of ways that technology can help you do things, especially when you're doing the same thing over and over again. There's a lot of ways that technology can help you, and especially, like I said, in the attorney world. So the first one, if you haven't heard of this yet, Cam Scanner is a great app. Basically, if you have a document and you want to scan it, don't have access to a scanner anywhere, you take the app, you point it at the document, and the app will actually find the corners of the document. So this is what it looks like in the camera of your app. And it'll find the corners of the document and then stretch it into a PDF that actually has all the right corners so that it looks like an actually scanned PDF. And you can change the lightness of it, you can do black and white, you can make it look better, all those sorts of things. And then when you save it, it saves it as a PDF, not a JPEG, which is what it would save if you just took a picture of it with your normal camera on your phone. So I use this all the time. Whenever anybody really gives me anything that's a physical paper, I just take a picture of it with Cam Scanner, I put it into my Dropbox or whatever cloud storage I want to use, and I know I have it. I can put that into the recycling, and I know I have that actual document. Unless it's something that I need the original for, I'd much rather have it on the cloud than have a physical where I have to find it somewhere. So this is a really great app, and can save a lot of time, especially for attorneys who always need to have digital formats of things. It's a quick thing. Also for if you ever do any reimbursement, receipts. As soon as you get the receipt, take a picture with Cam Scanner, and you're good to go. Another tip along those lines in terms of getting images of things. This is something that a lot of people know, but I'm always surprised that the people who don't. If you want to take a screenshot of something that's on your phone, whatever you're looking at, you can take that as a JPEG image by doing, depending on iPhone or Android, just 2 buttons at the same time. So on iPhone, it's your home button and your power button at the same time, and Android it's the volume down button and the power button at the same time. You push those down, kind of a long press, and your system will take a screenshot of whatever you're looking at. So if it's client information, a map to somewhere, especially when I'm going somewhere where I'm not sure I'm going to have internet connectivity and I need like an image of something that's on the web, So like, a ticket to something, or something, directions that somebody's written into an email. I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring that email up in my email app, so I'll just take a screenshot of it, and now it's actually on the drive of my phone that I can just pull up anytime. And again, along those same lines, these are just sort of basics that a lot of people know, but again, I just want to make sure that you're all aware. So we all know Control-C, Control-X, Control-V. Those are sort of the three that most everybody knows in terms of saving time. Instead of hitting right-click and then going to copy or going to paste, you can do it much quicker with those shortcuts. Lesser known are Control-Z for undo, and sometimes you can even do Control-Y for redo in a lot of applications. Select all is Control-A, so if you have your cursor somewhere and you want to select everything that's even in a 50-page document and you want all the text highlighted, Control-A, you've got all of it highlighted. And then this is one that I always use and not a lot of people know about, is Alt-Tab to switch through windows. I know a lot of Apple people, the windows can basically be zoomed out of really quickly and then zoomed back in, but for Windows people, we don't have that. Alt-Tab is a great way to just cycle through all of your different windows, and it'll reorganize. So if you Alt-Tab to a different window, that's your first window now. You can hit Alt-Tab, and now you're back at your other window. So you can kind of just go back and forth between two windows. And then two other good ones are if you're at the mid-range of a document or even a web page, and you want to go all the way to the top or all the way to the bottom, and there's no button or anything to do that. Control Home or Control Up arrow will get you all the way to the top. Control End will get you all the way to the bottom. So another little trick, instead of grabbing your scroll bar and dragging it down or doing your mouse wheel, you can just do it in one fell swoop. Here's one that I recently learned about that I've also been using all the time now. If you have one document and you want to see two different parts of it, so you want to see the introduction to your brief, but you also want to be looking at the Roman numeral 2 section B of it, and making sure that that case that you cited is the exact same case in both, and you're using the same verbiage, but you don't want to scroll back and forth. You can view two parts of a Word document at the same time. It's under View. You just go to View, and then you go to Split. This will say Split, and you just do that, and then now you have two scroll bars, two views, and you can just view them independently, and you can edit them, edit one, edit the other, and it's just a really great thing. And then when you're done, you just hit Remove Split, and you're back to one view. It's a really great way to save time, again, when you're doing two different things, which I find myself doing a lot. You're working on two different areas of a very long document. It also works in Excel. Another Windows-based or Microsoft-based trick is when you're putting a PowerPoint slide together for a presentation or what have you, and you want the format of it to change, but you already have 35 slides in your deck. Instead of going through and changing each one, oh, I want the color to be like this, or oh, I want to put a picture on it so that I have my logo or something like that. Instead of going through and doing it each one, you can edit the slide master, and that will then replicate that change throughout all of the slides. So it's a neat trick if you do PowerPoints. This is less a technology tip and more of just a how to use technology tip. A lot of people have desktops that look like this. It doesn't look very good. It's hard to find things like this, and it actually takes up a lot of memory for your computer to have all those things right there. So what you can do instead of doing this is have a folder on your desktop called Scratch or Work or whatever you want, and then instead of saving things directly to your desktop, just save it to that folder. And then you'll have a nice clean desktop, and then you'll know that whenever you need something that you've been working on recently, you can go to your Scratch folder. And then what I do is at the end of the week, when I'm kind of wrapping up, it's Friday afternoon, I go to my Scratch folder and I go through and just make sure I don't need anything, and I delete it all, and then I can start over from scratch. That's kind of where it comes from, start over from scratch. So just kind of a little tool. Here's another small one, but I found it very effective when I'm in under a deadline and there's other people either in my office or on my school account, and I just want them to know that like I'm kind of working on something really important right now and I can't necessarily stop what I'm doing, I will set up a vacation responder just like when you go on vacation, but instead of sending it to everybody, select only send a response to people in, and then it'll show your domain. So mine says Illinois Legal Aid Online, but yours will say whatever your domain is. And then it'll say under a deadline, so I'm off email. If it's important, swing by my desk. Otherwise, I get back to you first thing Monday. So again, if somebody from outside, somebody in the community emails me, they won't get that. But somebody in my office will, and they'll say, oh, okay, like, well, I really do need him, so I'm going to go to his office. It's just a neat trick that somebody told me about, and I found it actually very helpful. So this is a huge one that, again, I recently found out about, and now I don't know what I ever did without it. It's called Boomerang for Gmail. It's just an app. It's free. You can find it, and it'll install into your Gmail account. As long as you're logged in, it'll just go in and install itself. Basically, Boomerang allows you to, as the word implies, send an email away from you and then come back at a certain date. So this example is, hey, here are the tickets we bought. Can you print them out before the show? And then it gives the date of the show. So that person has basically some options. They can leave it in their inbox until the concert, which could be a month, 2 months away, and now they have this email sitting in their inbox for that long. They could put a task on one of the reminder apps. They could put it on their Google Calendar. There's all sorts of things, but again, it's so far away that having that there that whole time, it doesn't really make sense. What you want is to be reminded just in time of what you need to do. That's what Boomerang does. So you say, I want to be reminded on this day at this time, send this email back to me. And you can even now, it's been updated since I took the screenshot actually, you can write a little note to yourself to remind yourself if it's a long time, this is what I meant. I want you to print out these tickets, or remember to email this person back, or remember to check on this because the person said to check on that. It's just an amazing tool. I use it all the time now. I think it's mostly because I like to use I like to avoid using Gmail or my email inbox as a to-do list, because I end up just having like this very long, list of emails, and it just kind of stares at you, and you never really get anything done because there's no drive to get anything done, because you just always have an inbox that's full of emails. Whereas instead, if you say, okay, I'm going to do all of the things in my inbox that I know I can do right now, and if I can't do it right now, I'll boomerang it back to myself. Then you can actually get to a clean inbox and know, okay, I've done everything I can, and I will be reminded when I can do the other things. And it's just a great tool for productivity. It also allows you, and this is another great feature, to send emails in the future. So somebody sends you something, and you want to send them something back, but you want to give yourself a little time just in case something happens in the interim. For me, I do a lot of tech stuff, so I'll create an account for somebody, and then I'll want to email them letting them know I created an account for them, but I want to make sure that I don't get an error message back from the system in the next 10 minutes saying, oh, sorry, we couldn't create that account, or sometimes there's just time, it takes some time to create the account. So I'll say, send this to the person in an hour. And then in an hour, if I haven't turned it off, it'll send the email. If not, it won't send. Or if I come in and turn it off, it won't send. So I just find it's a really, really useful tool. It is a freemium thing, so you get, I think, 10 or 12 of those a month before you start having to pay, but even after that, it's not expensive, and like I said, it's a really amazing tool. Keeping it going on the Microsoft side, I find that this is very helpful to change my default style in Word. So the default style in Word is not necessarily a legal looking style. A lot of places use Times New Roman and use 12 point or 11 point font. And as you can see, Microsoft Word starts you out in Calibri. It has all sorts of different colors for headings and stuff like that. So if you go into these styles and right click them and change it and then say save this style, first of all, it'll start off your Word documents in that style. So you won't have to every time change, okay, now it's Times New Roman. If you know you're always going to write Times New Roman, just change your default style to Times New Roman, and it'll always be like that. And then you can also set up sort of other styles. So there's a style for headings, there's a style for subheadings, and you can make those the style of the headings that you like. I like headings that don't have any spaces, and it needs to be, title caps, or there's all sorts of things that you can change your styles for. And then again, if you're doing it all the time, just change it once, and now it's always going to be like that. So this is a search tip. Basically, Google does all sorts of stuff that a lot of people don't know about. You can find, there's YouTube videos on how to, really use Google to its full capacity, but this is one that you really do need to know about, and it's basically just searching for a term within a given website. So if you're on a website for a company and you want to see if they've posted their fax number anywhere so that you can fax them a pleading or something like that, you can search for the word fax and then put site and then put their URL.com as the site. So you just do site : and then whatever.com or .org. And then you just put your search terms right before that or right after that, it doesn't matter. Google picks up site : and then it knows, okay, we're only looking within this site. And even if that site doesn't have its own internal search set up, Google will allow you to search the entire website for that word. So I find it's a very helpful thing to be able to do. This is getting more into just sort of taking care of yourself and health things and less efficiency, but sometimes those things can be very much intertwined. So this is a very, very nice free application that you can install on your computer, and what it does is you tell it where you are, and then it figures out where the sun is based on what time it is where you are and what time of year it is, and then it will increasingly make your screen more blue and less white. And the reason behind that is studies have shown that if you are projecting white light into your eyes after it's not light anymore outside, it's dark, which a lot of us do, whether it's on our phone or a computer, you're basically tricking your brain into thinking that it's still daytime. And the more and more you do that, the more and more your brain thinks that we should be awake. Why, we shouldn't go to bed, we should stay alert, it's still daytime. So by taking out the white light and giving you blue light, it actually allows your brain to continue thinking that it's nighttime, so you can still do work, you can still look at your phone, even though it's nighttime, without disrupting your sleep cycle. So go to Fluxx, F.Lux, and check it out. They've got all sorts of science and stuff behind it that you can check out. And I've used it, and now when it turns off or something, or I use somebody else's computer, like my brain hurts. I can't do white light anymore at night. So it's a really great thing. This is a very, very helpful concept, but it's being presented in a certain app. So the concept is Kanban, and the app is Trello. So Kanban is basically a method of project management. It was started by a guy at Toyota, and he basically said, well, let's just put everything up on the wall, and we'll have different columns. One will be things that we need to do, one will be things that we're currently doing, and one will be things that we've already done. And what we have to do is move things from the first column to the second column, and from the second column to the third column. And it sounds simple, but especially for people who learn and interact with things a lot better visually, it's just an amazing way to kind of keep track of things, to organize things, to assign things. In my office, for the interns that I supervise, this is a wonderful thing because anybody else in the office can look at the interns. So basically everybody in our office, we use something called Jira instead of Trello, but you have everybody's names along sort of the y-axis here, and those we call swim lanes. And so the interns have a swim lane, and I can just put everything in there, and then other people who want to say, oh, we have something that, it's probably a good intern project, well, they can look and see exactly what the interns have on their calendar this week, what they're currently working on, and what they just got done with. So they can see, oh, well, there's, they have a lot of time this week, this would be great, or, oh no, they've got that coming up, let's figure out some other way to do this. And it's just a really great way to know what other people are working on. We get together every week, the first of the week on Monday, and we talk about what we're doing that week, and then we can watch each other as we move things across the Kanban. It's just a really great way to keep projects going. So again, if you're a solo, you're just starting out, it might not be as useful, but as you maybe get more successful, start hiring clerks, start getting partners, that kind of thing, it's going to be very, very helpful for you to be able to organize all your different projects. And again, you can assign them to multiple people, you can add comments. It's just a great way to sort of visually see how all of your tasks are moving along. Another thing along those lines in terms of project management and teamwork, communication amongst teams is Slack. So if you haven't heard of Slack, you probably will be hearing about it pretty soon. It's basically growing by leaps and bounds. People are calling it the email killer. Basically, it is a way to communicate, and instead of doing it based on email threads, so an email that you have a subject line for and you decide who it's going to, and you can add CCs, and then all those people have to decide, well, am I going to respond to that person? Am I going to reply all to everybody? Am I going to bring in new people? Am I going to add attachments? And then we all have all these threads that are so numerous that they're hard sometimes to find. I mean, I think we've all been in that situation where, oh yeah, I have that, it's in my email box somewhere, I'd have to find it. And you know, you're doing search terms, you're trying to find, you know, you're trying to do all these searches to try to find that one email. When really, if it's a project you've been working on, you should have that right away. So, Slack organizes communication based on channels. And they have hashtags in front of them, but they're basically channels. And they are ways to communicate, sort of like a chat room. So you can see as the chats come in, they start down here and then they keep receding back. And you can add links, you can add attachments, you can mention people and they'll get a notification. And then everybody can decide what channels they're on and what notifications they get. So I'm really active on the engineering side of things, but I don't really need to know about sales. So I'm going to opt into every single engineering message that gets sent. I want to know right away. But for sales, I just want like a weekly digest just to know what's happening. So that way, it's the people receiving the message that are deciding what to get as opposed to the person sending the message. So it's just a great way to organize everything and communicate more effectively and efficiently. And the other nice thing is it has tons of integrations. So, you know, basically every app that you use, most of the apps I've talked about, Trello, they all have integrations so that you can trigger different things in those apps with commands in Slack. So it's an amazing tool. They do charge, but it's, again, not that much. And I think if you try it out, they do have a free trial. I think you'll really like it. This is more of a tool for news and keeping track of legal news, which is, you know, as you know, something very important for lawyers to do is to know what's going on. Are there new rules changes? Are there you know, things that I need to know about? A lot of you probably use Twitter, Facebook, those kinds of things to get news, in addition to more traditional ways to get news. But sometimes when you use those services, you can get sucked into the non-work things, when really you went there to just try to know, you know, what your friends, your colleagues were talking about. And then now you're distracted, now you're not doing something work-based anymore. So, in comes Nuzzle. This is another one that I've just recently started using and I really, really like. Basically, Nuzzle, you tell it your Facebook credentials and your Twitter credentials, and then it will organize the stories most talked about by your Facebook friends and your Twitter followers. And it will organize them by the ones that have been most shared or most tweeted. So that way you're only getting the news stories, you're not getting, you know, pictures or status updates, all that stuff, you're just getting the actual news. But again, you're relying on your built-in network of colleagues and people in your area and in your practice. I've just found that it's an amazing way to really get the best news really, really fast. There's also digest that it'll send you. You can get alerts. There's even a column in it for friends of friends. So you can see sort of, okay, I've seen all the stuff that my friends are talking about. I still want to like see if there's anything else out there. You swipe to the left, and now you're looking at the same algorithm but applied to the friends of your friends. So you can kind of build out in scope and see the larger conversations. It's a really great app. This goes along the same lines as the keeping productive and not letting yourself get distracted. So we talked about Nuzzle as a way to sort of insulate yourself from the non-work things on social networks. Strict workflow is a great way to insulate yourself from the broader distractions of the internet. So we've all been there. You're working on something and you get to a really hard point and it's just too easy to click on your YouTube app or your Netflix app and just get that going and start watching that new series that you want to binge instead of actually working on that brief that you've trying to fix. So in comes Strict Workflow. It's a Chrome app, so you go to Options in Chrome and you can add it as an extension. There's similar ones for all the other apps, for all the other browsers. And basically what it does is you tell it, okay, these are the websites that I want to be blocked from when I'm working, and Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, whatever you want to put in there, Hulu, and then you say, I want to work for this amount of time, and I want you to block me from those websites for that amount of time, and then I want you to give me a break for this amount of time. And you turn that on, and it will do exactly what you say, and you cannot turn it off. The only way you can turn it off is by actually uninstalling the app. So you have to really hard quit the app in order to get through it. And I don't use it so much, but I've heard that a lot of people have found it very useful. It's just a nice way to sort of time box your work and just to break things up. Sometimes even if you don't feel like you need a break, you should take a break. So that's another reason that it could be helpful. So yeah, if you decide ahead of time, I want 40 minutes on, 20 minutes off, or whatever it is, it will really keep you to that, and it might be a nice way to help your workflow. Another app that's good for staying productive is this. It's called Noisely. There's another version of it called Cafivity. And these are both apps designed to create white noise. So this is another thing that's backed by science. You are more productive if you have just a little bit of noise than if you're in complete silence. But then too much noise and now you're getting distracted. So these apps are both designed to give you just enough sound that you can plug into your earbuds or put it on your computer if you're working in a place where you can play music out of your computer, and you can choose from all sorts of different types of static or white noise. They've really done an amazing job at getting a good mix. Noisely is sort of a lighter version of it. It doesn't have too many options, but it has this nice sort of interface where you can have rain, you can have storms, wind, nature, water, that kind of thing, and you can just put that on. You can add different ones. Cafivity is interesting too because it's just coffee shops, and they have coffee shops from around the world. They have ones from Brazil, Paris, one at a university, a lunchtime lounge. And again, it sounds kind of silly, but studies have actually shown if you put that in your headphones, you're actually going to be more productive than if you just have silence or your really quiet office, or on the other hand, if you have a really loud office, just having this sort of small amount of noise can really help you out. And they're both, again, totally free. This is more about marketing, so a lot of you as solo practitioners just starting out or getting your practice up and running, you're going to need to find clients. You're going to need to do client development, get your name out there, and really put out a professional tone and image so that when people do Google you or find you or get referred to you and they see what's on the web about you, that you have a presence. It might not be all over the place, but you do have things that are out there that have been professionally done or look professionally done and are clean and have the information direct. It's nothing like a bad website or a bad email or something like that to make people think that you're not serious and you won't represent them effectively. So just some basic tips on marketing. Again, you probably don't have a lot of time to be doing a lot of this, but I think it will go a long way if you just put in a little bit of time And again, a big part of it is just choosing which tools to use to make it as easy as possible on yourself. So, first big thing is websites. I highly recommend not creating your own website. The website is basically your main image on the web, and unless you have web design experience or have created websites in the past, you probably are not the one to be building your website. It just is really hard to get it right and to make sure that everything looks good, and too often people say, oh, well, I put something up there, but it's under construction, I'm going to keep working on it. Well, you're already practicing. You already have people that are looking at your website and they're getting that bad impression. So it's better to just say, okay, I'm going to hire somebody to build it, and they'll get it started, and then I can take it from there. There's a lot of people that can do that, but the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to use a service that will do it. One of these companies that are starting out that do just sort of out of the box, what they call business card websites. And a business card website is basically, you don't need to have any functionality, you don't need to be selling things to anybody, you don't need a shopping cart, you don't need to be integrating any apps, you don't need really anything fancy, you just need a website that shows what you do, how you do it, who you are, and a way to get in contact with you. Business card website. And it's amazingly affordable to get that kind of website and get it really done well. And Squarespace, from what I can tell, is doing the best job at that. They certainly have a lot of name ID out there, and I've seen a lot of websites that they do that look great, and they use a lot of images, they put the copy in the right places, and it's easy to get a hold of somebody. So you can decide, this is what I wanted to say, but then leave it to the professionals to actually put it out there in a way that's accessible. That's a big thing is making it what's called responsive design. So if the person is viewing it on a desktop or a laptop or a tablet or a mobile phone, they see a good looking website. It's really hard to get that right. So again, it's just better to rely on experts that know how to do that. Another big part of it is email marketing. So you might not be thinking about it too much, but email marketing is a great way to not just get new clients, but to keep other people up to date on what you're doing, especially if you have more of like an access to justice focus or a nonprofit focus, and maybe you're even considering setting up as a nonprofit, and you have donors, and you need to keep donors up to date on what you're doing. Really important to have some sort of email marketing. A really good one to use is MailChimp. It's very easy to use. It's very cheap, but it has everything that you could possibly want. It will keep track of who's opening your email. It will keep track of who's unsubscribing your email. You can do A/B tests, which is where you try the same email, but one with this subject line and the other with that subject line, and see how many people open one against the other to see which one was better for that given audience. They basically do it all, and they make it really easy. They have great customer service. So that's a really good one to use. If you're not quite there yet and you don't want to deal with HTML templates and campaigns and putting emails together into campaigns, you can use TinyLetter. This is a much lesser known one, but it's basically a light version of MailChimp. You can get emails out, you can still manage all of that stuff, but it's not as fully functional as MailChimp. So if you're looking for something super, super easy, TinyLetter might be best for you. Another trick to use when you're doing all things web-based is to use URL shorteners. So the big one is bit.ly, bit.ly. Another one is owly, ow.ly. And that's basically you have a really long link that you want to send somebody, but you want to put it on Twitter so you don't have that many characters, or you just don't want to send them a big ugly link that has all these words in it. Just go to bit.ly, plug it in, it'll give you a short little link that you can then send, and then if you create an account on bit.ly, you can actually keep track of all the clicks and who's clicking on it and where they're clicking from. So again, you can start gathering data on how well you're doing in terms of marketing, especially if another great idea is to start a blog on your website, so you can talk about the issues that you do. So You're a housing lawyer. Well, you can blog about, different issues in the housing law space. And so people go to your website, they say, oh, not only is he here, he has a nice website, he's also talking about, the latest rule that came down about housing, and so he's obviously an expert. So if you're doing that sort of thing, URL shorteners will be very useful to you. And then finally, in general, just be visual. A lot of places that are doing social networking now actually have a rule that we don't post anything unless it has a picture. And it's a good rule because people want to have images, even if the image is very tenuously related to the actual words that you're saying. It's just helpful to have that image next to it to orient the person and to create more of a visual experience. If you don't, you are losing viewers because everybody else is doing it. Everybody else will either have an image or a video. Video is the big thing now, these little 15-second, 20-second, or up to a minute or two videos that are viewed, sometimes just silently, but they're viewed, and it's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, everybody has video now. So if you not only don't have video but don't have images, then you're basically going to lose a lot of viewers. So just try to find images if you can. There's a lot of open source images that you can find. You can go to Creative Commons, which is Wikipedia's open source image finder. Go out and take some of your own pictures. Just take your camera out one day and just take pictures of random things. Again, it does not have to be particularly artistic or beautiful. If you just take a picture of a column on the side of a building, and then your friend shaking a hand with another friend, and then a book, and then a car, something like that, well, you have the license to those photos, and now you can use those. All of a sudden, your website and your social media looks 1,000 times better just because you have these stock images associated with your text. So definitely try to do that as much as possible. And then one last thing about using technology and trying to become a more efficient lawyer. This is something you might not be thinking about right now, but is something that I've found is very helpful. If you have any sort of constituents or clients that speak a different language, or English is not their first language, and it would help you to know more about those languages, and I think most people in America are in that situation where it's either Spanish or French or German or Polish or Arabic, that if you knew that a little bit more, you would be a lot better off in interacting with those people and those potential clients. The best way to do that, in my opinion, is an app called Duolingo. The great thing about Duolingo is that it's fun, it's sort of cartoony, and there's all these images, and it's all based on getting better at certain things. But then the best thing about it is that once you complete an area of the language, the Duolingo app will remind you in a couple weeks, hey, try doing that same group of words again just to stay fresh on it. And you'll have little bars associated with each one, and those bars will go down as time goes on. So you'll have to go back and do the same things to keep those bars up. And that's just a great way to keep those things fresh. If you practice the language, you get really gung-ho about it for a week, and then you don't do anything for it for 3 weeks, well, it's going to be really hard to remember those things. But if you just do Duolingo every once in a while, when you just have some downtime and you keep those things up, your proficiency of that language is going to be much, much better. And they basically have every language you could ever want on there. And then you can also pick the words that you want to learn and want to do better at. So if you are, again, a housing lawyer, you can pick, okay, I want these types of words that are in this word area, so housing related words, so that you're really focusing on those words that are actually going to come in handy for you in your practice. So to close out, just a couple more links for you. I've already mentioned LSN TAP, the Legal Services National Technology Assistance Program. That's going to be your primary source. Again, I drew a lot of what I talked about today from them. So I'd highly recommend going there if you want some more. But then also NTEN, the Nonprofit Technology Network. And then lawtechnology.org, which is part of the ABA. They have a Law Technology Resource Center, which does a lot of this same stuff, just sort of collating and organizing all these different tech tools and saying, putting them in a prism for attorneys, and this is how you can use them, and we think they're good, and that they're useful to you. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to email me or shoot me something on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching.